Good morning. I'm Mandy Winders, and I'm a member of this congregation. And on behalf of our Reverend Dave Dunn, our Director of Religious Exploration, Lexi Tangney Brown, our Music Director, Alex Peach, and our talented cellist choir, my fellow worship associates, and our dedicated technical team that is making today's live stream possible, I want to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalists Metro Atlanta North congregation, which we lovingly call UUMAN. Today we would like to acknowledge that the land upon which this congregation is situated is the former home of the Muscogee and Cherokee nations and those who've gone before them. No matter who you are, who you love, or where you are in your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. Do we have anyone visiting us for the first time? And if you feel comfortable doing so, please introduce yourself so we can worship together as friends. Anybody on my left this morning visiting us for the first time? Would you mind stating your name and telling us where you're from?
Sure. Dan Carter, my wife Cassie. Sure. Dan Carter.
Oh.
Dan Carter, my wife Cassie Love. This is my daughter Sansa, and we also have Waverly and Wilder are outside. We're from Cumming, Georgia.
Great, thank you. We're happy to have you with us this morning. Anybody on my right? All right. Okay, we have a few announcements this morning. We have a couple of adult enrichment offerings after service this morning. We have our Sunday service reflections and our knit, crochet, and needlecraft. You can find the locations for those in our printed order of worship. For our youth religious exploration this morning, we're having our play group outside Discovery Hall. You can see the giant inflatable. They're all out there jumping right now. And this is going to be our last play group until our regular religious exploration starts again in August. Our summer RE will start on Sunday, June 4th at 10 a.m. An end-of-the-year RE party will take place today after service at 11 in front of Discovery Hall and on the outdoor portico. Our congregational meeting will begin today at 12 noon. Food and snacks will be available after today's service, so please stick around, have some food, and enjoy the end-of-the-year party, and then join us back here in the sanctuary at 12 noon for the congregational meeting. Next Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. is our volunteer day at North Fulton Community Charities. You must sign up to attend. Look for an email from Reverend Dave or sign up directly by clicking on the event in the Breeze calendar. And then finally, next Sunday will be our annual Hembry Park service. The Sunday service will not be held here in the sanctuary, but at the pavilion in Roswell's Hembry Park. There's only one pavilion in the park, and it is accessible. There are restrooms and a wonderful playground next to the pavilion. Please bring some food to share as we celebrate the end of our church year. And now let us greet one another and a hand of friendship.
Morning, all. Taoist philosopher Deng Ming Dao writes, "One side of a ridge is cold and foggy. The other is hot and dry. Just by choosing where you are, you alter your destiny." This morning, you've chosen to be here, in this place, and in that choice, you have already altered your destiny. That choice is an act of creation. Our choices, taken together, also an act of creation, an act of emergent possibilities. Good morning, and now let us light our chalice together.
Please join me in reading the chalice lighting words that are printed in the order of worship. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and welcoming of multiple truths. And now, please rise if you're able, and let us sing our opening hymn, number 1054, Let This Be the House of Peace.
We're going to do something a little different today. Is Mike working here okay? Is it working? Okay. Yeah. So we're going to do something a little different today. We've never done this since I've been here. We're going to do a little activity as you are able, and children can stay with their parents, okay? But we're going to do an activity. You're going to find everyone in the room who has the same birthday month as you, okay? As you are able. That's all there is to it. And you will sit with them if you're okay with that, okay? So just find the people in the room who have the same birthday month as you.
Attention, will all December births please report to the microphone?
Are you the only one?
That's weird, yeah. Now that's freaky, Dave. Okay.
Well, I gotta stay up here, but you can see if you can find some more.
Okay.
But I'm with you. Yeah. Okay. Okay, if you can find your seat. If you can find your seat, please. A seat. Find a seat, please. Okay. Well, I'm with you. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Do we do where's January? January. Just January, just myself and Donna. Okay. All right, February. Okay. March in the back, cheap seats. All right, April. All right, May. All right, June.
Only me. Oh, I'm up here.
Yeah, she's up. She had to stay up here. July. Wow. August. September. October. All right. Alex is October. November. And December. Are there any born in another month? Anybody else? All right. Thank you. There'll be more about this later. More about this later.
Now is the time in our service when we share our joys with each other to magnify them, and our sorrows to divide the weight of their pain. If you're so moved, please feel free to come forward, drop a pebble in the bowl, and express a joy or sorrow that you may have. For those of you attending via live stream, if you have a joy or sorrow that you would like to share this morning, you may type it in the chat.
I'm excited that we're having a party today and that I'm having a half day on school on Monday. And a half week.
I'm Jennifer Ratcliffe. This is a weekend of family events for us. Our grandson Wells came to visit from Baltimore. We did playtime with Lexi's toys. And then yesterday we went to their half-sisters and half-brothers graduation. And tonight we're going to host Lexi's cousin, Carly, who's coming from New York. So lots of activities.
I'm Miriam Patanian, and I'm a member here. I have, I guess, a pebble of continued concern. It just seems like things kind of keep rolling. So this week, my father-in-law had chest pain and was admitted to the hospital. You know, becoming 90 years old is really hard. I think it's just really hard. He's out of the hospital, and he's hanging in. The good news about my mother-in-law is she is driving, which means John and I are driving a lot less. So again, thank you for your continued thoughts and well wishes. And this is a pebble of great joy that what started as, you know, oh, this would be fun, has turned into a source of absolute grounding and just sheer joy for me. And that is also the reason why I won't be at the congregational meeting today. And that is that I've been taking a hip hop class for this entire year. And it has culminated into last night's world debut of Mimi P, the hip hop star, along with 16 of my other middle-aged mama friends. And we have another performance this afternoon, and it just brings me great joy.
Hi, I'm Martin Podorowski, and we're celebrating Emmy's 15th birthday yesterday. And the night before that, on Friday night, she won an award for being the outstanding soprano in her high school chorus.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Stevens. I'm going to drop a pebble of concern today for my sister, Diane, who will be hopefully turning 69 in July. She's had many, many heart problems and strokes, and she's had open heart surgery. It's been a battle for her. And now her ejection fraction is about 15 to 25%. So I'm looking at Dwana here, that's not good. So they're talking about implanting a defibrillator and pacemaker in her at the end of June. But it's very concerning, and I don't feel like we have long with her.
Hi, my name is Sam. I want to drop a pebble of concern. I know not everybody sees cats as part of the family, but our cat has, one of our cats has run away, and his cat brother is very upset, and my son is very sad, and he's been gone for a couple days, so we would appreciate some come home energy. So he comes home. Thank you.
Good morning, my name's Jennifer. I am dropping a pebble of concern for my little brother, who I have he has been expressing suicidal thoughts to me for the last 3 or 4 days, and he lives in New York, and I don't really know what to do to help him, and anyway, for my brother.
And I'll drop one final pebble for any joys and sorrows that are still too tender to share today, and let us keep one another in our thoughts in the coming week.
On July 5th, 1687, Isaac Newton published his book Principia Mathematica, one of the most profound books probably in human history, actually. In that book, he described planetary motion, the universal law of gravitation, explained tidal tides, which are resultants of the moon's gravity pull on the Earth. And he did all this mathematically using a mathematics that he invented called calculus. He needed that math to do to publish his works, to describe his works. It was said that this book, quote, spread the light of mathematics on a science which up till then had remained in the darkness of conjectures and hypothesis. Generally, Isaac Newton spread this light by looking at the big picture of the universe and then reducing it down to ever smaller and smaller components, till infinitesimally small components, to points, lines, angles, curves. And although 300 years later, some of his solutions ran into problems at the subatomic level, his approach generally explained the behavior of much of the universe and what goes on here on Earth. And he did this by showing how these small components worked And then he extrapolated that to explain how big things worked. But there was actually another problem with his findings as well. More is different. More is different was the title of a paper published in 1972 by physicist and Nobel laureate Philip Anderson. In this paper, he writes that, quote, "The behavior of large and complex aggregates of elementary particles, it turns out, is not to be understood in terms of simple extrapolation of the properties of a few particles. Instead, at each level of complexity, an entirely new set of properties appear." What could this mean? Let's take a conscious and thinking human brain. Our brains have ideas, thoughts, imaginations. And what is the brain composed of? Well, neurons, synapses, which communicate electrical and chemical signals inside the brain, the fluids and tissues. But if you look at a neuron, there is no consciousness there. It's only when the entire system is taken as a whole that really consciousness appears. It's a system. Newton doesn't work here. His reductionist approach doesn't apply to consciousness. More is complex. Complexity is a system of things. Many things that interact in sometimes random ways, sometimes random, sometimes predictable ways. Complex systems aren't linear. You can't take a small piece and extrapolate it to explain the whole. They're nonlinear, they're random, and there's often states of disequilibrium in it, chaos. And as the system is developing, it tries to seek a state of equilibrium, and to do so, it has to adapt, evolve, and change into something new. Scientists call this new state, new behavior, as a result of adaptation, emergence. That which emerges out of a complex system, although comprised of individual components, can't be described by the individual components. It's kind of confounding. It's kind of confounding. But I'm going to draw some geometric figures here to try to show something here. So, first, I'm going to draw a triangle made out of asterisks. Okay, there's a triangle made out of asterisks. Okay, I'm going to draw another triangle made out of plus signs. Okay. Use your imagination. This is a triangle. And I'm going to draw a circle made out of asterisks. Circle. Okay. The triangle and the circle are made up of exactly the same things. 9 asterisks. The two triangles, same kind of object, are made up of completely different things. Completely different things. So, when we talk about emergence, it's not just about the components themselves, but how they're organized. Okay? So my birthday's in January, okay? You in January too? No. She was the only one. That's very odd. What is that about? We're outliers. I've been told that a lot. So, anyway, those, My birthday's in January, yet how those born in January organize themselves and how those born in January do things can't be described by me, can't be described by anyone else, any other individual born in January. It's the group that defines it. Okay, I lost my thing. Okay, let's think of some of the implications here. What, if anything, is coordinating any kind of emergent behavior? What is driving it, and to where, and why? Theoretical answers to these questions were posited by mathematician and philosopher, scientist, Gottfried Leibniz. Now, as a sidebar, and I find this so fascinating, Leibniz was a contemporary of Newton, okay? Lived in late 1600s. Leibniz also invented calculus at the same time Newton did. Newton wasn't interested in publishing anything about calculus. He was just using it as a tool. But when he found out that Leibniz was developing it, he published it first, okay? You know, as a sidebar to that sidebar, there's a scientist named Rupert Sheldrake who believes that if something is invented or discovered here, it's very likely to be discovered and invented somewhere else at the same time, even though there's no communication between those two. That doesn't make any sense to me. But maybe he's onto something, because Leibniz and Newton did this at exactly the same time. How could they do that? Anyway, although Leibniz didn't have the advantage of looking at subatomic particles, he lived at the end of the 17th century, he didn't have the advantage of doing experiments that enabled him to look at subatomic particles. He posited their existence and called them monads. And he posited this, which is kind of earth-shattering. All the monads in the universe, he says, are mental in a sense. The components of the universe must be capable of an internal representation, a perception of everything else in the universe. That sounds pretty bizarre. But 300 years later, in quantum mechanics, there are some kind of indications that somehow particles know about other particles even when they're separated by great distances. Doesn't seem to make much sense. Leibniz also said, space and time are a continua and mere appearances. Space and time don't exist as a framework independent of monads. Space and time are merely relations among monads. Again, quantum physics kind of proves him closer than Newton did. Newton thought of space and time as kind of the stage upon which everything happened. When Einstein and quantum mechanics, that's not quite the case. So maybe Leibniz is actually onto something, even though it sounds pretty far-fetched. That monads have a perception, a mental state to know about other particles. Okay, I'm gonna make one final point, and then I'm gonna get to why I'm telling you all this stuff. The final point is this: an emergent entity created out of complex, chaotic interactions among particles can exert a causal force downward on the components themselves. The emergent entity can cause the individual components to adapt and change and evolve. Okay, so one could argue that this congregation is an example of emergence. 30-something years ago, some left-leaning liberal folks got together and decided, let's make a congregation. And did they know how to do it? Probably not. It was probably chaotic. It was probably, they didn't know what they were doing. They had little money. How are we going to do this? So, but eventually they came across and they made some bylaws, and they, had a mission statement and a vision statement, and they collected some money, and they made some, had some principles, and eventually those kinds of things that define the congregation push their way down onto the members themselves, so that they maybe live by those principles. Maybe they try to live more ethically, more morally. That living by these things created by the congregation, not by any one person, but by the whole system, we can live better lives. We can flourish. And you can't say that any one member of the congregation is the congregation. Right, Ashok? Even though you've been here the longest, probably. So, but no one person says, oh, that is UUMAN. Okay, you can't take that reductionist approach. UUMAN is now doing things that the original members of this congregation could never have imagined. There were no such thing as like websites back then. And now we have a website. Maybe a website is like an emergent behavior. And in case you didn't know it, we're going to be getting a new website, right? Going to be launched May 29th. Now, things were running smoothly with the old website, but now, with a new website on the horizon, there's a little bit of chaos, a little bit of anxiety. How's it going to work? It's a little bit of out of balance a little bit. And we're probably already thinking, how do we get back into balance? What must we do? In a way, this new emergent website is going to have some downward forces, causal forces onto us. It's going to force us to evolve and adapt and change. It's going to ask more of us. Although there are many characteristics with the new website, many things, I would say that for the most part, it's a very event-forward, event-focused, event-driven website. With one click, anyone, inside our congregation, without, can see all the events that we're going to be having at any one time. All of them, with one click. An event could be the chili cook-off, Circle of Women's meeting, music share, second hour program, any covenant group meetings. They're all going to be on the website. A person can read about the event, contact somebody who's running the event. They'll know when and where it's going to be and how long it's going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which means that for us, someone's going to have to write that stuff. Someone's going to have a picture, have a description of the event itself, and contact. There's going to be a lot of stuff. And it's not the communication team's job to do that, actually. Their job is to take the content given to them by others and put it on the website. But we are the others. So my point here is that the old website was nice. It didn't ask anything of us. This new emergent website is going to ask something from us. It wasn't created to make it easier for us. It was created to make it easier for people outside our walls to connect with us. And to do that, it's going to force us to adapt and change a little bit. And sometimes that's not fun. Now, this morning's sermon about emergence was purchased at our Harvest Moon auction this year by Doug Wilson, who's in the back. Yes. And I have to admit, when he gave me the material for this, and we met and had lunch about it, I was intimidated. I was downright intimidated and anxious about the topic. Emergence, I really didn't understand it. I did a lot of homework, and I am just touching the surface of this here, just touching the surface. There are many aspects of emergence called strong emergence that really I need to study a lot more about. It's pretty fascinating. And some characteristics of emergence are actually frightening. For example, will computer networks, chatbots, and artificial intelligence someday organize themselves into some new emergent entity? And what will be the implications on us? Emergence emergence doesn't have to be ethical or moral, okay? It's likely to be amoral, don't care, okay? What emerges could be a don't care scenario. How are we going to adapt to any of those don't care scenarios? I have to admit that this topic of emergence kind of exerted some downward pressures onto me to evolve. And I didn't want to. It was anxiety, a little anxious creating, you know. There's a lot going on, and to have to dig into this was a little anxiety creating. But I think I did evolve a little bit, so I have to give Doug credit for that. Thank you. But I hope he doesn't purchase next year. So. Okay, so I wanted to tell this story. I've told it before, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but it kind of fit here. It's from the Upanishads, which is ancient wisdom tradition. It's about 2 people, Uddalaka and Svetaketu. Uddalaka is a wise man. Svetaketu is a younger pupil. And Uddalaka takes Svetaketu to shows him the banyan tree. A banyan tree it's a huge tree. The trunk of the tree is just massive, okay? It's not necessarily that tall, but it goes like, spreads out everywhere. It's a giant tree. Uddalaka grabs a piece of fruit and gives it to Svetaketu and says, Svetaketu, break it open and dissect the seeds and tell me what you find. Svetaketu peels open the fruit and goes through the flesh of the fruit, comes to the seed, starts to cut open the seed, and finds nothing. There's nothing there. Uddalaka says, my son, the very essence of the seed, which you cannot see, from that comes the vast banyan tree and its fruit. Believe me, my son, an invisible and subtle essence is the spirit of the whole universe. That is reality. That is Atman. And you are that. From an invisible and subtle essence, smaller than a seed, a single tree emerges and bears fruit. From an invisible and subtle essence, smaller than a seed, an entire forest emerges. From an invisible and subtle essence, smaller than a seed, I, me, emerge, grow, and bear fruit. From an invisible and subtle essence, smaller than a seed, a congregation, we, emerge and bear fruit. Moving from me to we, more is different. It is the nature of things. It is the nature of reality. Smaller than a grain of rice, greater than heaven itself, we are that.
effort to fulfill and further the vision and mission of this congregation, we ask that our members and friends share of their time, treasure, and talents. With this, we will now take the offering. You may also give using the Givelify app.
We accept this sacred offering generously given by our beloved members and friends, and may we use it wisely and judiciously in service to our mission. Please rise in body or in spirit for the singing of our closing hymn, number 1018.
Now please join me in extinguishing our chalice. Okay, thanks. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Biologist Ursula Goodenough writes, I have come to understand that the self, myself, is inherently sacred by virtue of its own improbability, its own miracle, its own emergence. May you see that in yourself, ourselves, and in the beauty that surrounds us. Go in peace and enjoy your week. Thank you. That chalice lighting was so good. I'm going to use it for the congregational meeting. It was really good.